Hello everyone, my name is Kenton Kivestu. I'm an ex-BCG consultant, an ex-Googler, and the founder of RocketBlocks, an online platform that helps students prepare for case interviews. In today's RocketBlocks mini lesson, we're actually doing part 3 on a series we've been doing of how to prepare for case interviews. Links to part 1 and 2 are in the comments below. In part 1, we talked about getting your general approach to preparation right. And in part 2, we talked about different timelines for preparation and how to allocate your time between skill building activities and mock interviews. In today's part, which is part 3, we're going to talk about things you can add to your daily routine so that you're always getting little bits of case practice in here and there. And it's a really helpful thing to do because it starts making thinking in terms of case interviews and the types of questions you're going to answer a daily habit. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 daily habits that you can add into your routine that are really going to help you prepare for case interviews on a daily basis, even as you're just going through your life and doing all the other things you've got to take care of and just get done in any given day. But before we jump in and discuss those 3 tips, there is something I want to call out, which is really just the philosophy underpinning building some of this stuff into your daily life. And that is that small tactical practice repeated daily has a really magical way of compounding over time. It's the same principle as building savings early and just letting the interest compound over time. It feels like it starts small, and every little contribution in the beginning feels like, oh, could this dollar here or this 5 minutes of practice really help here? But over time, it does really start to compound, and you'll see the benefits accruing to you. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about 3 very small tactical tips that you can add to your daily routine to prepare for case interviews. Okay, so daily habit number 1 is use your favorite business newspaper, Wall Street Journal, The Economist, business section of the New York Times, doesn't matter, to find one business story every day, whether it's on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, the business section of The Economist, and use that scenario and frame it as a case problem and try and structure a response for working through that case problem. So to give you an example, this week in The Economist, at the very beginning, where they have a few blurbs about what's going on in the business world, there was a little blurb about the Spotify IPO. So this is the streaming music service that went public for the first time. A really interesting case question that might come out of that real-world blurb is, should Apple or Google or Amazon or any of the other competitors that are interested in the streaming music business as well, should one of them try to acquire Spotify? Yes or no? And you can take that and then structure a case response mentally. You don't even have to do it on paper. Just think about what are the key buckets you would look at. What are the key drivers of that investigation? Just the same way you would go through that process if you're actually sitting down and doing a case or doing some really intensive structure practice. But just a quick mental exercise. And the reason this is really helpful is, 1, it's quick to do. It's informative, so if you do this every day, you're going to stay on top of what's going in the business world, which is important context to have going into any sort of interview. And then 3rd, it's going to give you a little bit of experience dealing with some of the more non-traditional case questions that come up. A lot of times when students start practicing for case interviews, they start with the very kind of formulaic profitability cases. And that's great, and it's a good place to start. But you're going to face some more non-traditional cases as you're going through the whole interview process, and just picking real-world stories as they're happening and framing case questions off that is a good way to prepare for that as well. Okay, daily habit number 2 is to force yourself to answer any little quantitative question that comes up throughout the day. So, for example, if you are filling up your car with gas and you have a 17-gallon tank It's totally empty and gas currently costs $3.50 a gallon. How much is it going to cost you to fill up that tank? Force yourself to actually answer that question instead of, say, just ignoring it or maybe using a calculator on your phone or something like that. And these type of questions come up all the time. You might be paying the tip on a restaurant bill and you need to calculate 15 or 17 or 20%. Force yourself to actually do that math and calculate it. Or maybe you ran an 8-minute mile on your daily exercise this morning. Think about how long would it take you to run a 26-mile marathon if you held up that pace? How long would it take you in minutes and how long would it take you in hours? If you start forcing yourself to do these type of calculations every time they come up through the day, the 3-4 times you face those questions a day, getting that practice is really going to start to add up and it's going to start to compound. The mental math that gets asked in these case interviews is really only tough because we're not in practice. We just let ourselves get lazy and we don't do this math all the time. So by starting to build that in to your daily routine, it starts to pay off dividends really, really quickly. And as a quick corollary to this, you can do the same thing with charts and data. Although it's a little harder, it doesn't come up as much in your daily life, but do the same thing. Anytime you see a data display or a chart, force yourself to take a look at that and summarize what are the one or two key insights that chart is really telling me. If you start doing that, you're going to build muscle memory on how to do that quickly. It's going to become automatic. And when you're doing it under pressure in a case interview, whether it's looking at a chart or doing a mental math calculation, because you've been doing it on a daily basis, it's going to be that much easier. Daily habit number 3 is practicing your structured communication. Now, before I go ahead and show some examples of when you can practice structured communication, let's just quickly level set on what exactly structured communication is. So what I mean by this is, say you are concluding a case interview, and you might say, my recommendation is that the client do X, and the 3 key reasons supporting that are A, B, and C. That's a structured way to conclude the case. It's a nice verbal kind of scaffolding to follow because it makes it easy for the listener to understand what your points are, what your evidence is, and really absorb and internalize that so that they get the message. Okay, so the really great thing is that method of communication, being very structured and very clear about what you're recommending, can be practiced in all sorts of scenarios. It doesn't have to be anything business related. Imagine you and your friends are, say, discussing where you're going to go for dinner on Friday night. And your favorite option is Little Star Pizza, and that hasn't even been mentioned yet. You could, propose in that conversation, hey, I think we should go to Little Star Pizza. And the reason is because they have incredible deep dish pizza. They've got a really good draft beer selection. And I also heard that Friday, they're having a 30% off sale. So it seems like a great time to go. Okay, now you've practiced structured communication. You set out what your argument and position is, backed it up with 3 clear points. In a scenario that's totally different than a business case or a case interview, yet the skill and the practice that you're getting is real, relevant, and is going to be transferable to a case interview as well. And you can find all sorts of opportunities to practice that throughout the day. In classes, when you're making points and bringing up your arguments in classes, whether it's debates with your friends, maybe comments and discussions on online boards, there's a ton of opportunities to use that type of structured communication and get really good case practice in. So that's a wrap on our 3 daily habits to help you prepare for case interviews, and a wrap on our overall 3-part series on preparing for case interviews as well. One final word I want to say about the daily habits is that we've talked about some daily habits to improve your structuring skills, your mental math and quantitative skills, and your communication skills. But if there are other skills you're looking to improve, almost certainly there is a way to incorporate some type of practice into your daily routine on that as well. So really think about that and think about how you might be able to quiz yourself on that, because the benefits you'll get from practicing it just a little bit daily really do compound over time and make a big difference. So thank you so much for watching. We've got a ton of great videos on the case interview preparation process coming out weekly. So if you haven't subscribed yet already, please do so. There is a big red button below, as well as another one that's going to pop up on screen here in a second. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.